Welcome to another episode of Purchase to Profits. I'm Seth Ferguson. Make sure you hit the subscribe button so you don't miss our daily interviews with successful real estate investors. And I've put together the top 7 key market drivers I look for when analyzing a real estate market. Go to sethferguson.org to download your free copy. Our guest today buys, renovates, and rents single and multifamily homes with his family-owned investing business, all the while working a full-time job. Jay Helms joins us today. Jay, welcome to Purchase to Profits. It's great to have you on the show.
Good afternoon. I almost said good morning because I usually do these in the morning time, but good afternoon or good evening, right?
Yeah, it all depends on which time zone you're in.
Yep, that's true. That's true. And or when you listen to this, right? So
that's true. So let's dive right into it, whether it's morning or evening. Your real estate goals. Tell us about what you're looking to do in real estate.
yeah, so it's a combination, right, of real estate plus you kind of circle back around to or start with the movement I put together with a W-2 capitalist, right? I'm a firm believer that you can have a full-time, successful, and fulfilling W-2 job and also invest in real estate, which is one of those things where I didn't really put the pieces together until about 4 or 5 years ago. And that's when we really started getting serious about investing. But the goal for me, the big goal, right, the goal that I'll never reach, right, I know it's not attainable, is to build 300 years of legacy wealth for my family. That's the big goal that I'm striving for. I don't think I'll ever hit it, but that's what keeps me going, right, is to make sure not only my grandkids are taken care of, but my grandkids' kids. That's the idea.
Yeah, you know what? I like
That's
that.
the big one.
Nobody has ever described it that way before. The 300 years. That's really cool. I like it.
Well, I didn't come up with it. Now I stole it from somebody who's in the Facebook group, so
Okay.
it was not my own material. But I saw that and I was like, "Holy crap!" America's not even 300 years old.
Yeah.
Think about if you could be able to do that, what that would do for your family. Right. And just for generations to come. I want to be old Grandpa Jay that everybody talks about, right, when I'm dead and gone. So when I thought about that and really kind of put it in perspective for my kids, I was like, I got to get to work. There's
Yeah.
no way I'm going to hit this unless I start making some moves. So, but yeah, I love that goal. I wish I would have came up with it myself, but I'm not that creative. But I'm glad it was posted in the group and something I could steal, right?
Yeah. And so
Ethically still.
ethically, yeah. So you're just borrowing. So,
Yeah, yeah.
okay. So you've got this big 300-year legacy wealth goal. Do you work backwards in trying to figure things out in 5-year increments? Like, how do you, because that's a pretty big goal. And like you said, you probably won't hit it, though I hope you do. How do you work backwards so it actually makes sense in your mind?
Yeah, and I typically do that, but with really big goals, I have trouble focusing on, okay, what's the 5-year plan? What's the 10-year plan? What's the 15-year plan? Because market conditions are going to change, right? My situation is going to change. Meaning 4 years ago or 5 years ago when we started this, we had 0 kids. Now we have 3, So situations change. So I try to look at 2-year max goals. But mostly I focus on 1 year, and then I break it even further down. I don't know if you're familiar with the book, The 12-Week Year by Brian.
Yeah.
I think Brian Moran. Am I saying that right? Brian
Yeah.
Morgan. Anyway,
Yeah.
it's the 12-week year, right? So he really opened my eyes. That I think the subtitle of it is "Get More Done in 12 Weeks Than Most People Do in a Year." I adopted that principle about a year and a half ago, and it is by far a very true statement, right? And so I focus on those 12-week years, and I get a lot more done. So it's hard for me to say the 5-year, 10-year goal just yet. Now, what I'm discovering is as we reach different levels in our investing, the grasp for to do more within those 12-week spans is becoming higher to reach, but also easier to grab, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. So what sort of assets are you acquiring now, and what sort of assets do you like, will you have to change at some point?
Yeah, I mean, I follow the, I want to say a lot of investors start with single families.
Yeah.
I started with that. I have just a handful now, I think 3. And then the rest of our portfolio is multifamily. We have a small multifamilies, We have an apartment that I help syndicate as 42-unit apartment complex. And I'm about to be, this is the first time I've been on the other side of that, to be a general partner for a 172-unit apartment
Nice.
complex. So I do see, it kind of depends on what the market's doing. I've got some money set aside to where, I might start looking at being a hard money lender. You and I were chatting just a few minutes ago about me still being at work, right? And one of the reasons I'm looking at these different avenues, again, different chapters, is not only do we welcome baby number 3 in our lives in May of this year, but also change jobs. So I don't have as much freedom as I did before to go out and hunt down deals and make sure the property manager's taking care of the place and doing all those things, even though I actually struggle with the phrase passive income, but even though it's more passive income, I struggle with finding the time to do that now with a new job, a new addition to the family. And so I'm looking at different ways to become more passive, right? Things like being a general partner and being a hard money lender for those things. And I don't necessarily have experience in the hard money space, so that's going to be interesting to figure out. But the good thing is I've got some people in my network who have been very successful at it, and I'm just like I told you, I stole that quote. I'm looking to borrow their tactics, as you put it. So
Yeah. Yeah. And we've had a number of really successful guests on the show with hard money lending. So I'm happy to hook you guys up.
yeah. Let's make sure we link to those episodes in the notes too, because I'm going
Yeah.
to go back and reference them.
Perfect. So at what point, because right now, lots of people start off in real estate investing, working their W-2 job, then eventually they transition to full-time. Is that something I know you're at work, so we have to be careful with what we say,
No.
but, is that in the plan? And if so, do you think that's going to be a turning point in your business?
It's not in the plans currently, and there's like 2 or 3 people still left here. So I think I'm speaking as transparent as I would if I was at home, but it's not in the plans currently. Again, if we get into a different chapter in our lives, then sure. We kind of started this as to build wealth, but as we're having kids and they're growing up and wanting to be around them. I wanted at one point in time to say, look, I want to retire early so I can spend time with my kids. And I had a really wise person say, look, how old are your kids? And I told him, he said, well, you got to understand when they get 8 or 9 years old, they're not really going to want to have anything to do with you until they get through with their teenage years. So then, the goal became, okay, not so much focused on being there as much as I wanted to, but just being able to provide for them. Right. So I have been in corporate America my entire career. I don't know the work-life balance outside of that. I've always had the work, and I've always had some sort of entrepreneurial thing. Right now, real estate has been the most successful, and that's what we're running with. But no, I don't think it does. I don't think there's ever a time. At least I can't see that far in the future where it says. I'm going to punch that time card for the last time. Mainly because, when you go to buy properties, they're going to want to know, the banks want to know, the lending institution, how you're going to secure that property, how you're going to pay for that property. I hate dealing with banks. Let me put that. There's got to be an easier way to finance properties. I don't know what it is, but maybe it's through hard money. Maybe it's through your hard money guys and doing it that way. But yeah, I don't foresee anything like that in the future for me. It kind of goes along with our mantra with the W-2 capitalist group that I've started. Sometimes I call it a movement, but it's a community of folks who do realize that you can be successful at your W-2, but also build wealth through real estate investing. And our mantra there is earn, invest, and repeat. Right. So I get that asked often, especially in our Facebook group. There are people that will come in there and talk about, hey, I've retired from my W-2. I'm like, why am I in this group? I'm like, I don't know why you're in this group. This is not for you. This is for people who love what they do, and I do. Something I discovered about myself is that I really like coaching and helping people obtain their personal goals. Inside and outside of work. So as long as I'm helping people grow and I see the success they're having, it'll be hard for me not to do something, right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And you had mentioned earlier that you started off in single family homes, and now you're syndicating these larger properties. How did you have to change how you thought about real estate as an asset in order to move from those single families to those larger ones?
Well, the biggest thing, mind shift for me was figuring out, okay, yeah, I'm kind of a loner, right? I like to go do things by myself. Single families, we can do that. We can knock a couple of those down. And I was not very as transparent as I am now. But in order to get some of these big deals done and really make some progress on building that wealth, you've got to have some partners, right? And you've got to learn how to vet people out, know what their true intentions are. And for me, that was a big thing. Handing over, for example, handing over my social security number to these folks and saying, okay, here's my, let me fill out this PPM. Here's my thing. Here's my information. That they could just take it and go with it if they wanted to. That was a big step for me mentally to rely on somebody else for my success. Right,
Yeah.
that was huge. So,
and you just mentioned vetting partners and how important that is. How do you approach the vetting process? Like, do you have a checklist you follow? How do you work it?
no, not necessarily a checklist, but just I'm not going to partner up with somebody who just walks in off the street, right? They've got to have some sort of track record, and so far that's panned out. Everybody I've partnered with has had some sort of track record, but also they're in the space. If you kind of look at the space that we're in, it's kind of like a fishbowl, and that everybody kind of knows everybody, or everybody knows the key players. So if there's a couple of people out there with bad reputations that you just know to stay away from. Same way with the good ones, right? Is that cleaning ladies here, I think. So, but there's other people that also have really good reputations, and you have to go through your same process of due diligence and making sure that those folks vet with you, right, and that y'all work together very well.
Yeah, no, for sure. And lots of people, lots of the listeners and viewers for this show are beginners and intermediates in real estate investing. So one of the questions I get all the time is, how do I start growing my team and my partnerships? So, going back in time for yourself, how would you suggest somebody start that growing process?
Just start having conversations. I also run a mastermind too. It's a virtual mastermind. We use Zoom and meet like this. And it was so funny the other night. This lady she's been in the group for 7 or 8 months, and she was like, how do I build out this network? And I was like, well, you start having conversations. You start going to your local meetups, you start having conversations with us. I was like, there was another guy on that's still on there. We were just kind of chit chatting after the session was over, and I said, you've never asked me what I'm looking for a deal. But here I am. Here's another member who's interested in investing all over the country. You've never asked us. And it's so funny. We get caught up in all the different dynamics. It's just about having a real conversation and not being afraid to have that conversation.
Yeah.
Because this goes back to the vetting the partners out as well. Everybody kind of battles obscurity, whether you're raising money or you're just trying to get started. We, as in our society today, we have so many things coming at us from different angles, right? If you're not constantly in somebody's face saying, hey, I've got a deal. Hey, I invest in real estate. Do you want to partner? What does an ideal situation look like for you? How much are you willing to participate, right? If you're not willing to constantly have those conversations, then you'll struggle with it, right? But the reason why I partnered with the guys on the first deal is I knew, and they constantly said, hey, here's what I'm looking for, right? Same thing with the deal I'm partnered on with now. I had to move some money around. I'm still waiting for that transaction to go through, but they kept emailing me and reaching out saying, hey, here's this deal. We've got a few spots left, blah, blah, blah. But they kept getting in my face. It was either on social media, through email, or through text message.
Yeah.
They kept contacting me. So, if you're just starting out, you've got to be able to have that conversation, whether it's on social media, or face to face. You just got to have it. And I think once you start telling people what you're interested in, you'll be amazed at how many people in your circle that you already know invest.
Yeah.
And another thing too is if you start finding one or two people, you take them to coffee, you take them to lunch. At the end of that conversation, there's at least one question you need to walk away with, and that is, who else do I need to be talking to? Because now they're connected to all these other folks, right? That you're probably not connected to, and have them do an introduction for you. It's just about having a real conversation. That's it.
Yeah, no, those are some really great tips. And for yourself, have you developed any routines or rituals that have helped make you successful?
Yes. So having kids as I got a pass tonight, but having kids has altered my lifestyle tremendously.
Yeah,
To where I used to be the guy that was sleeping up until the moment I had to get dressed and get ready to go to work, and then I'd come home from work and do all this real estate and investing or whatever the entrepreneurial activity was at the time. Well, now my alarm clock goes off at 4:45. And I get up, I do a quick workout, throw some water in my face, try to wake myself up, right? And then I've got a couple of hours in the morning where I focus just on real estate items. Now, days that I sleep in are the days that they just go off on a different path, right? Because I miss that 2 hours where I don't do something I'm truly passionate about. Now, my wife may argue with you that I'm truly passionate about sleeping because I'm a heavy sleeper. I'll give her that. But there's 2 hours where I have very limited distractions. I'm having interviews like this. I'm talking to like-minded folks, and doing all the real estate and task, something I'm truly passionate about, before I even take a shower and get out the door to work, right? And now I can go to work knowing that I've knocked that out and I can focus on my W-2, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
then when I get home, it's family time, right? Kids want to see daddy, won't get on the floor and wrestle. And I've learned that they're pretty good massagists, massage therapy. I can get on the floor and they can drop some elbows and kick me in the back, and it just feels like a pretty nice little massage. Oh, that's weird. You can cut that out.
Oh no, let's keep it in. My little guy, we pretend to be dinosaurs, except sometimes he gets carried away and tries to take a chunk out of me.
Yeah. So my 4-year-old, my son, he just can't. He gets so excited that we're playing that he'll just punch me in the face. And the first couple of times he did it, I look at him like, why did you just punch me in the face? And he just can't get it through his head that you don't punch people in the face unless they're being, bullying you around or anything. But he just gets so excited he didn't know what to do. And now he walks up and he goes, I'm going to punch you in the face. Okay, what's going to happen.
Oh,
Kids are
that's awesome. Oh yeah, yeah. Never a dull moment.
never a dull moment, that's for sure.
All right, well, let's hop over to a Keystone deal. So, a deal that
Okay.
made a big impact on you and your business. Is there one that comes to mind?
Yeah. So I mentioned small multifamily, so I'll continue with that conversation. So 3 years ago, my realtor brought me a duplex that had been on the market for a while. And so back to the relationship piece, right? Is you're having those conversations, you're battling that obscurity. Well, the realtor brought me this deal, and I ran the numbers. I want to say it was listed for like 130. I ran the numbers, and I said, hey, my top number is 90. And I didn't want to insult the guy to go any lower. I felt nervous making the offer anyway. Made the offer. He accepted it just like that. I was like, damn it, I should have offered lower. But he accepted it. We closed on that property and we held it for 3 years. We recently sold it, recently being 2 months ago. So not only in May did I start a new job and we had a baby, we closed on property as well. But I never stepped foot in that property. Never. I mean, I owned it for 3 years, never stepped foot in it. Had a home inspection done. My home inspector just sent me the report. Had it professionally property managed for those 3 years, right? So I never went in there, never did any kind of upgrades or anything like that. And then we sold it in May for 172. Now, I didn't want to sell it because it was cash flowing. It was one of our best cash flowing properties, and that's one of the main criteria that we invest for is cash flow. But I couldn't. I kept seeing these opportunities pop up all around it, and they were selling for prices that didn't make sense to me. And I said, "Well, shit! If they're getting it, I should be able to." Right? That sense of ownership pride started coming out. So I put it out there for 169, and then my realtor brings me an offer for 172. I'm
Nice.
like, okay. And it came out to be like, because we also, the key thing about this too is it came on a double lot. So during that 3 years, we split that property up into its actual two parcels. So now I have that empty lot. I still kept it. So if I calculate in today's value of that lot and everything that happened transactionally wise, it was like a 422% return on that 3-year hold, right?
Nice.
And I'm like, okay, let's rinse and repeat that process. Every how we got to do it because we've got some real money to play with, now. So
Yeah, for sure. So, you had said that that property had been on the market for some time. Why do you think nobody else acted on it? And
I don't know. I don't know. The only it was on it's on a septic system, and I did have to have it pumped when we first acquired it, and there was some question about the age of the septic system, but you know, even in with that 90 grand offer price, I had built in, I've got to replace the septic system because it was 20 or 30 years old. It about reached its useful life, but I don't really know. I don't know if maybe the people were just not. Um, you know, it was priced too high. They were afraid to make a reasonable offer. I don't know.
yeah,
But it worked out for me, right?
oh, for
or
sure.
for us.
Yeah, and I think that there's a good lesson in there that don't be afraid of putting in an offer.
No, yeah, yeah. And the thing is, we never, other than um, just general maintenance and repairs over the years, which was included in that return percentage, that ROI, we never did real big improvements to the property. We never, did any kind of capital expenses. It was all just, okay, the roof's got a couple areas that needs to be patched up. We had a little leak, that we've got to do some paint and some things of that nature, but nothing ever, it wasn't a dump. The tenants that were in it when I bought it were in it when I sold it. So it was just an all around, and they never gave me any problems, right? It was just an all around ideal situation.
Yeah,
I'd love to have one of those every week that I could close on.
yeah, yeah. Well, actually, this brings up a good question because you obviously made some great returns on that deal. If you had the choice, would you keep doing deals like that or syndicate more of the larger deals? Because there's two different schools of thought.
Yeah, that's a great question. I really don't know. It's hard for me to see where I would get that kind of return in a bigger deal. It's hard for me to see where I get that return in a smaller deal too. So, they talk. A lot of folks talk about diversification, and while we focus mainly our investing on real estate, we diversify through those different assets, right? So we have those single families, those that we still have, the small multifamily, and then the larger ones. Um, I don't know. Uh, it seems like the bigger the play, the bigger the risk, right? So if I'm thinking of, and my initial thoughts on it, I would do the smaller deals. The
Interesting.
one reason is because there doesn't seem to be as much competition for them, right? The bigger guys, everybody wants to go big, but it's usually from those 5 to 20, even 50 are typically your mom and pops, and the bigger guys don't want to play with them. And then the middle guys can't make sense on the numbers for it to work, right? And it's all about your investing criteria. They've got to hit certain returns to be able to provide their investors money. But if it's my money and just me, I'm probably going to focus on that small niche. That's where I'm focused on it on this chapter,
Yeah.
right? Now let's talk in a year from now, and it may be different.
Yeah. Well, no, that's a very interesting answer. So I figured I'd go for it and put you on the spot.
Sure. No, that's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah. So how has getting involved in real estate investing changed your life so far?
What's made me get up earlier, right? Actually, I attribute that to my kids, but you know, so most everybody gets involved in real estate for one reason, right? It's the money. It's that
Hmm.
money aspect of it. And looking at 5 years ago, we definitely had a negative net worth. So we're not there now. We're far from it. But we've basically, I think in the last year or so, our income has grown like 60% outside of the W-2 job. So, that is just, I'll back up and reference Rich Dad Poor Dad, which if you're a real estate investor, you haven't read that book, I don't know that you can call yourself a real estate investor, but I found that book when we were about 6 months pregnant with our first kid. And it just transformational in the way that I looked at things on how to build wealth for me and my family. Because up until then, I wasn't thinking about raising kids. I didn't have that mindset. And, I was focused on the corporate ladder, climbing the corporate ladder. The higher I go, the more money I make. The more money I make, the wealthier I will get. We didn't really start seeing wealth creation until we started investing in real estate. So there's something to that, right? And that's why I started the W2 capitalist movement, is because there are tons of people out there who think I've either got to do one or the other, or if I invest in real estate, I've got to be on a path to be financially free. And that's great if that's what you're about. We're not about that, right? But yeah, it's one of those things where things started clicking. Now the market conditions were perfect, right, when we started investing. If we would have had our wits about us, we'd have started buying in 2011. And now the market's doing what it's doing, and nobody really can make sense of it. I mean, you shouldn't make a 428% return or 422% return on a 3-year investment.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. I would take advantage of it, sure, but you're not going to get those deals all the time.
Yeah. And
Right.
especially right now, your underwriting and your due diligence is so important
Yes.
at this stage of the cycle.
Yeah, and there's a lot of folks out there that get all hyped up about big numbers, and they're excited about putting these deals together and projecting these returns. And I'm just sitting here thinking, either something I don't, or you and I are going to have a tough conversation later down the road. And I don't know. There's a lot of that conversation that goes on in the Facebook group about what the market's going to do, and nobody has a crystal ball, right?
Yeah.
I think if we look at where we're at in the election cycle, I don't think there's any way that Trump's going to let the economy or anything tank until after he's reelected. That's just my personal belief, but I'm to the point now, if you buy now, you might, on the smaller end, if you're like with flips and stuff, you might get stuck. And I'm basing that on my local market, because properties are sitting longer, starting to see prices drop quicker. And we're at the height of the, buying season right now. We're still middle of the summer. So
yeah, for sure. And that's great, because we even got a political election forecast too on the show.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that's awesome.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, Jay, if somebody's looking to get in touch, you mentioned the group you have and all that kind of stuff. Where can they find you?
Yeah. So I'm at w2capitalist.com. But I'm revitalizing that site because it looks horrible right now. If you go there right now, because I put something up just to put that up there. But I also blog at helmsrei.com. But I'm looking to combine both of those into the W2 Capitalist very soon, hopefully before this goes live. So
Perfect. Well, if whenever you're watching this, make sure you go visit the site, and it'll look brand new. And
let's hope so, right?
That's awesome. Well, Jay, just want to say thanks so much for taking the time today and sharing some very valuable information with us.
Absolutely. Thanks, Seth.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. And to you, our viewers, I wish you well on your journey from purchase to profits. See you next time.